Okay, today at Hometown U, we're going to discuss Money Management 101. It is the basic principles that you need to start with to make sure that you do proper money management. One thing we hope you'll get out of this, there is no magic pill, and everything is a long-term investment, and everything that you put into it ends up being long-term, but it's beneficial for you in the future. Hope you enjoy it. But I did want to just start off by saying there is no magic pill, and I'm going to start off by describing a little bit about what the difference between W-2 and independent contractor or 1099 is, then go into some of the things that I think you ought to do. And I'm going to tell this, for those of you who know me a little bit, know that I have a plan, or at least I think I have a plan. Look, plans are always redirected, right? Life gets in the way of plans sometimes, so we understand that. So when I say, this is what, I would suggest you do with your money, how would you do things with your money? Understand that's relative to what happens in your life, right? So there's always redirect from that. And I always say this too, and I've said this to my children, do as I say, not necessarily as I've done, right? Do as I say, not necessarily as I've done. So anyway, go ahead, next slide. So W-2 employee versus 1099 independent contractor. Okay, W-2 employee typically has set hours, right? W-2 employee comes in, and again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just explaining the difference between a W-2 and a 1099. Fixed pay, typically a W-2 employee gets fixed pay. They come in, negotiate a salary, get their benefits, what have you. You work on your own schedule. W-2 employees kind of got to be there when you're supposed to be there, right? Independent contractor, you do have a flexible schedule, which means you can work all 24 hours in one day. And I think we've all done that before. We've also all done weekends and things like that. Here starts to get some of the responsibility part. Paying your own taxes, okay? W-2 employee, all that stuff's withheld from your check, okay? All that stuff's paid outside, and then at the end of the year, you get a nice little statement from your employer. You file your taxes, everything's done. 1099 employee, like again, all you guys are that are real estate agents, you have to make sure that you pay your taxes, okay? I've seen it in our career, or my career, so many different agents that have been doing great, and all of a sudden the tax man comes. April 15th comes around, they're scrambling, they're trying to figure out how to pay their taxes, they forgot to save for them, they went and bought a boat, they went and bought all sorts of fun stuff, and then they forget about the taxes. The taxes will ruin your business. It will bankrupt you quicker than anything else you can do. So I think we've all been there, and everybody has their own ways of doing that. Keep track of your business expenses. Okay, I'm gonna go through that a little bit because that's really important. And really, what are your business expenses? They're pretty elaborate. And I'll tell you this, like I'm going to say a couple times during the presentation, I'm not an expert at all of this stuff. So just to let you know, there are people that do things like tax accountants, like financial planners, like people like that you hire the best and have them do that type of work for you. So I'm going to give you some suggestions that way. Your accountant may have some different suggestions. Just make sure you use those things. You're also, in a W-2 employee, you certainly get benefits, insurance, retirement, etc. And that's kind of your choice as a W-2 employee. Sometimes there's employee matches that you go on and things like that. So you do kind of have a choice there. Health insurance and retirement and so forth, those are all up to you if you're a W-2 employee. As a 1099 independent contractor, that's up to you. You've got to pay those things. You've got to budget for those things. And I don't know if you guys have realized this, the older you get, the more expensive a lot of those things get at this point. And you may know this too, with health insurance these days, the older you get, the more expensive it gets, right? It doesn't matter. You can have a young 22-year-old who smokes 4 packs of cigarettes a day, and you can have a 55-year-old that's never smoked in their life, and the 55-year-old pays almost 2.5 times the 22-year-old. That's just life. That's the rule, that's what it is. But anyway, you got to budget for those things. So, go ahead, next slide, that's fine. So, commission income spending plan. And again, this is out there, again, kind of a do as I say, maybe not as I've done. But if you had a perfect plan and you didn't have any of those life unexpected events, okay, out there, first you need commission income, okay? So That goes to all the other training you've been going through. A component of this whole formula is you must have income, right? So you got to make sure you're doing the right things to get income. And I know with the training you're getting in Hometown that's going to come, okay? First and foremost, and I said it before, the first 30%, when you get a commission check, take 30% of that gross amount and put it away in savings for your taxes, okay? Hometown has internal savings accounts we can talk to you about. We don't pay you interest and we don't get interest really on it, but if you aren't disciplined enough to take it on your own, Hometown actually has set up some accounts for agents that basically every time they get a check, we take a percentage of it, put it away for them, and then when they're ready to pay their taxes, so you sit in a savings account, it comes right back to them. So Hometown will provide that service if you want that, but if you can do it on your own, obviously that's preferable. The problem with that, you understand I don't even have to tell you, the problem with that is that if you have this money sitting out in the savings account, okay, and you think you have access, which you do, it's your savings account, you have access to it every single day, and all of a sudden you say, well, you know, I can kind of go buy this other thing because I'll put money in my savings for taxes later. I'll put my money in savings for taxes later. I can just tell you that does not work. It just doesn't work, it's plain and simple. 30% may be high for those who don't make as much. 30% if you make under 60,000 is high for that amount. If you make over 100,000, you may want to go a little bit higher than that. Okay, it just depends on what your deductions are, which I'll go over some of those in just a minute. But anyway, put away for your taxes. Okay, save it. You should file quarterly taxes if you don't already. And again, all of these things are relative to what your tax accountant tells you to do if you have that person that's helping you out there. 50% should go to your household expenses. And this is a wide range of expenses, okay? A wide range of expenses, okay? Obviously, your mortgage or rent, whatever, utilities, health insurance, auto insurance, food, anything like that that you basically have to live off of, think that 50% of your income should go towards that. Now, in addition to that, as you make more money, obviously those type of payments, that 50%, those expenses in there are relatively fixed, right? The big ones, your insurance, for instance, your mortgage, your rent, those are relatively big fixed payments. So they don't go up when your income goes up, right? Okay, what goes up when your income goes up is your wants, right? That's what ends up happening. So when you start doing things like saying, hey, I want to plan this big trip somewhere, think of that as a household expense and don't take it out of these savings that I'm going to talk about. Think of that as saying, okay, I'm going to have a special thing here that I want to go buy something or do a trip or something like that. Think of that as a household expense, okay, that you're doing that with, okay? And by the way, when I'm saying all this, this is from your gross income, okay, your gross income. So I know on commission checks sometimes, if you don't know this, you'll have potentially you charge something through the Hometown books and you get some deductions off that. Look at that gross number, and that's the number that we're talking about to do these amounts on. 10%, now again, this is just starting off, okay? I would say take another 10% out of that to go towards a savings account, that until that savings account meets at least 3 months of household expenses, you have a separate savings account. That should be sitting there for emergencies, should be sitting there for overruns. You know, the winter months is a little bit more heavy on a gas bill, whatever it may be. That savings account ought to be about 3 months of that household expenses. So again, when you're doing your personal budget, let me just see by show of hands, does anybody actually sit down and do a personal budget? Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. If you don't, I would suggest doing it. And I know you're going to say, well, Todd, I don't know how to do it. If my income is down and I haven't sold any houses yet or whatever, well, that goes with your goals on your sales side. Your goals on your sales side should translate into a number, okay? If you're saying I want to sell 2 houses a month and I want to make X amount of dollars, you'll come up with that number and then start doing the percentages. But you should have an internal business plan or a financial plan that you're talking about and looking at all the time, okay? So once that equals 3 months of household expenses, then the rest of that will go to either long-term investments, and I'm going to talk a little bit about philanthropic opportunities that are out there, because I do believe it's one of the things that we should be doing as a person, whether you're volunteering doing things or you're helping others with some of your financial resources, is something that's very important. Just as citizens in our country, I think it's things that we ought to do. Then obviously doing the math, you got 30, 50, that's 80, 90. The remaining 10% should go into long-term investments. Now I'm not saying only 10%, okay? I'm not saying only 10%, but you should budget that 10% every single time as an expense, okay? So think about your plan and you say, okay, 10%. So if I made more money one month, take 10% and put it in some sort, and we'll go over some of those investment opportunities that you may consider, you may already have, or what have you, but you ought to take 10% and think more about the future and think more about things that I want to save for long term to try to take care of myself as we get a little bit longer. I mentioned IRAs, life insurance, real estate, other businesses, what have you. Again, this is not a set formula, okay? This is just something that if you sat down and said, I've never done a financial plan before, this is kind of where I would start with. See where those numbers end up. You might say, hey, 50% of my household expenses, I can't spend that much. Well, that's great, okay? Or that ends up being 60 or 65% because they're more expensive than what I thought. That's great. Then we just need to either make more money or decrease your expenses, right? That's really the only way to make those numbers work, okay? It's really a wise economist told me one time, or my economic teachers told me at Randolph-Macon, he goes, really, it's really simple. Either you increase your revenue or decrease your expenses. Those are the only two ways you can go to make more money, right? Make more money there. So anyway, I know that was a very simplistic thing that I was told, but I always remember that. Next slide, please. Okay, reducing your taxable income. Okay, we talked a little bit about taxes, okay? One thing to make sure you reduce your taxable income is making sure you keep track of your business expenses, okay? Business expenses are far and wide. The good thing about an independent contractor, the tax laws are written so that we can take advantage of a lot of expenses and things like that that you can write off against your income. And does anybody know the difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Shaking your head, go ahead.
Yeah, so a tax credit would be whatever you owe in taxes. Let's say it's a $2,000 tax credit, and that would be $2,000 you don't pay in taxes.
Correct.
A tax deduction is if you made $100,000 but had $20,000 in deductions, you would only be taxed on $80,000 instead of $100,000.
Great job, great job. Exactly right, exactly right. A lot of times you don't necessarily have opportunities to get tax credits. That'll be like a level 300 money management type course. So when you hear someone that says, oh, I got tax credits for something, you always kind of say, well, you probably don't have tax credits, you probably have tax deductions. But exactly right. So it's very important to keep track of any business expenses that you have, okay? I put some examples up here to kind of give you an idea of what type of things that you can deduct off of your taxes. And it's really important to take advantage to the extent you feel comfortable and or your accountant or CPA feels comfortable that you deduct off of those. Auto expenses are a tricky one, okay? You can do 62.5 cents a mile and try to keep track of your mileage, okay? You could, and again, this may be a next level class, you could form an LLC, the LLC owns the car, and then it's 100% deductible through your LLC. So you can do it several different ways. You can keep track of all of your, your gas, any kind of a certain portion of your car payments. And again, I'm going to talk about car payments, which are a no-no in a minute. But if you had those, certain portion of those could be considered auto expenses. So again, read and or know what your tax accountant gives you advice on what you can deduct on your car. Okay, again, car is a big part of what we do, right? We're always going traveling, looking at properties, taking customers around, meeting customers, that sort of stuff, and trying to do that would be great. I would be good. Obviously, advertising, COI events, supplies, note cards, business coaching, meals with clients, gift to clients, home office deductions, okay? So this is something that actually came in about 2014-15 tax code. that you can actually, if you have an office, home office in your house, and you're a 1099 employee, you can deduct up to 15% of your house expenses off your taxes. Okay, again, I'm not here to give you tax advice. Whoever you use for that advice, make sure that they're comfortable with what you're trying to take for a deduction. But that, when you go to that level, it actually, you can take the principal payments, 15% of your principal payments on your house, not your interest, because that's deductible in another area. You can't take 2 deductions. But, you know, your, even like cleaning of your house, people cut the grass, any maintenance of your house, believe it or not, if you have a home office, you can take 15% of those expenses off your taxes. Obviously, it's very important to say if I have gross income, like the example of $100,000, and I have $20,000 of deductible, then you're only paying taxes on $80,000. Okay, so that obviously helps you in your tax liability. Okay, next slide. Also, keep track of any personal expenses for tax deductions. Examples, we mentioned charity. Obviously, charitable contributions to a certain extent, and again, this again goes back to how you file your taxes, whether you take the standard exemption or whether you itemize your deductions. Getting way in a little bit over my head, but I know enough about it to be dangerous. But a lot of things, your charity, mortgage interest, you may know is deductible, real estate taxes, things like that are deductible. Personal expenses that are deductions. Those are expenses that if you're a W-2 employee or 1099, you can take those as part of your itemized deductions out there. And I said it a couple times, but please consult and help for help with this. I'm not an expert at that stuff, and I don't claim to be. I know enough about it to make sure that I can at least give you the right direction that way. Having a reduced income you pay taxes, that you end up paying taxes on, is obviously a really smart thing to do if you're in business for yourself. It'd be the same thing as someone who ran a mechanic shop and they didn't deduct the electricity off their, off their expenses for their business that was for the shop. So just be aware that you're an independent contractor. Anything that you feel like you can deduct that's an expense that you have out there, deduct it all the time. Any examples, and I should ask some of the people, any other examples of deductions off your business that maybe I didn't mention up there that, again, I just kind of threw. Rod, you got any other examples I can think of for any other business type deductions?
Postage, car wash.
Car washes, any maintenance of your car, correct. Car washes, postage, you said? Yep, postage, yep. What's that?
Cell phone.
Cell phone. Cell phone's a great one. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It's pretty expensive.
You have an assistant, staff.
Yep, assistants and staff and that sort of thing.
Transaction
coordinator. Any of those things. Any of those things. Typically, anything you charge on your hometown account would be a deduction. I mean, that's, obviously that's sometimes advertising, someone, whatever. How about your MLS dues? All of those things are deductible, okay? All of those things just, again, I didn't want to list a whole, every single one.
I think the most important is my CPA.
Yeah, CPA, that's a deduction.
Every day, every month, and you're looking for this advice. That's what we go to. So.
Exactly. Any professional advice you get, anything like that, business coaching, things like that are deductible. Okay, great. All right, next slide, please. All right, this is where a lot of people get in trouble, okay? Credit cards. I, for one, do not like credit cards. I hate them, but I use them. So understand, I don't like credit cards because they're too easy, okay? Who got their first credit card in college? Okay? Who had so much fun the first week they got their first credit card in college? Okay? I mean, I'm certainly one of them, okay? All right, so that is dangerous because, as you well know, a lot of the credit card companies, banks, what have you, they'll give just about anybody a credit card the first time, right? They'll give that. Now, understand, credit cards are good, can be really good for you, okay? If you're just starting out, you have a credit card, and whatever you charge on it, you promise yourself you're going to pay the next month. So you pay it off every time. It actually starts building your credit up, doesn't it, Adam? Doesn't it actually help that kind of situation as opposed to having no credit, right? But you got to pay it on time, okay? My suggestion is pay it off, okay? But that's something that I would do. I would get a couple different credit cards if I was setting up your business plan. One would be simply for all business expenses. It helps you keep track of them. It helps easy end of the year statement. You got it all right there. It's easy, what have you. Now, can you charge every single business expense? Probably. I mean, just about all of them. If you think about everything we just did, you know, cell phones, maybe you can have it automatically paid through your credit card or whatever, but most things you could do it. So I would have one card that's just for my business expenses, okay? And do it that way. Keeps track of it. Doesn't make you think every month, oh gosh, what did I spend money on? What did I do? What have you? So do that. You know, taking people out to dinner, taking people out to lunch, breakfast, coffees, or whatever, all those things, keep on one credit card. Use a separate card for monthly household expenses and emergencies. So the reason I would say use a card for any monthly household expenses is, again, because there's so many points and cash backs and all that stuff that credit cards give. As long as you're going to pay it off every month, okay, then you can use it for those things. Do not use credit cards to go buy a four-wheeler, okay? Don't use credit cards to go buy something that you didn't otherwise budget for, okay? It just gets you in trouble. It just gets you in trouble. For as much as there's a reason they give cash back and points, right? Because there's a lot of people that don't pay them off. Credit cards can be anywhere from 16 to 28% interest. 16 to 28%, okay? It depends on which way to pay them off every month. Only charge what you know you can pay off the next month, okay? And again, I'd have two separate ones if I was you guys. Okay, next slide. All right, this is a biggie for me. I know this is hard. It's so hard, especially starting out, okay? Personal property purchases, okay? There's no tax benefit. There's some we mentioned as far as a car goes and the expenses, but there's really no tax benefit to buying personal property, okay? Personal property, any way you look at it, is an expense. Only try to finance things that are investments, and I'll go on that in just a second, okay? But autos, try not to finance it, okay? I know it's hard, okay? I was given advice when I was 34 years old. I was, you know, kind of thinking, okay, everything's good to go. Got a couple big car payments, got obviously a house payment, got things that I'm trying to do financially long-term and everything else. And I met with a guy about, you know, kind of his financial plan. He says, how many car payments you have? I said, oh, yeah, I got 2 of them. Yeah, pretty good, pretty easy. They're only this much. He goes, pay them off tomorrow. Because you have enough money to pay it off. Because it'll do you so much better. Once you pay it off, you actually, with that car, you actually have a little bit of equity going into the next car. But don't buy your next car until you can pay cash for it. And if that means you only get a used car, perfect, okay? But don't finance cars, okay? I'm just telling you, if you can do that, it's great. If you can't, understand. It's just starting out, you can't do that. Try to use short-term and do so with independent of your monthly household expenses, okay? So don't do it along with your monthly household expenses. Kind of think of it as, hey, this is a bad debt, and then once you do pay it off, take that money automatically and put it in some sort of savings, because now you're saving that money and you actually see a result of and some benefit of you paying that car. So try to do that. Other personal property, I just said this a minute ago. Never finance boats, furniture, other toys, okay? No matter what it is, just don't finance those things. If you can't afford them, don't buy them, okay? If you can't afford them, don't buy them until you can afford it, until you can write a check for them. There's nothing better than going out and you say, okay, I want to buy, and I use four-wheeler, motorcycle, you know, whatever you want to call it. You know, any toy that's out there, there's nothing better than going and buying your first jet ski and saying, writing a check and walking out. Okay, I just paid for it, it's done. Okay, but you don't do that until you have the money for it, right? All these things do is continue to keep you in debt and don't let you service anything else that you want to do long-term and make yourself, your net worth a whole lot higher. So, did I finance cars? Yes. So just to let you know, do as I say, not as I did, okay? Did I finance other things? Okay, my first boat I financed, okay? After that 34-year-old eye-opening conversation, I didn't anymore. He didn't make me. He encouraged me. I had money in savings. I was like, on the hog, everything's good. You know, look at my stuff. He goes, take all your money out of savings, pay off the cars, pay off that boat. What? You know, what in the world? Anyway, one of the best things I've ever done Whenever I want a new car, I wait till I've saved to get it. It's just the way it works, okay? So I used to get a car every 2 or 3 years till I was 34, and I think since then I've only had a total of 5 cars in 25 years. So anyway, next slide, sorry. Home mortgages, equity loans, okay? This is my advice. On a home mortgage, and I know this may be counter to what you think, okay? And this might, Abby will probably applaud me, and Nate will probably applaud me when I say this. Finance as much as you can afford on your home. It's the only thing you get a real deduction for. Okay, it's your only as much as you can afford. Understand what I'm saying? Don't finance too much to where you feel like you can't afford it. Finance as much as you can afford on your house. Okay, finance as much as you can afford. Okay, because the money that you would have put down that you decide not to put down, then we're going to invest that elsewhere, right? So finance as much as you can and much as you feel like you can on your house. Okay. Sometimes a lot of our customers are left without a choice. That's what they're going to do. They're in FHA financing. They're going to put minimum down. By the way, it's coming back, Becky. You know, it used to be FHA financing was bad. Now it's good. You know, because obviously Mark's a little different. But anyway, finance as much as you can on it. This is a good type of debt. If there's only one debt you have and it's a mortgage, it's a great debt to have. It's a great debt to have. You got to make your payment, right, Abby? Make sure you make your payment, and everything's good there. Okay. Once you build up some equity in your house, or potentially, and again, this would be more of a maybe a 200 level class when we start talking about rental houses and potential other investment opportunities within real estate. Once you get enough equity in your house, and I think everybody understands what the equity means, but it's basically your value less how much you own. Whatever that difference is, you can get an equity line of credit out there. Don't use that equity line of credit to pay off credit cards. Don't use it to go buy the boat, the car, all the things, the radio ads and the TV ads tell you to do with that equity line. Don't do those things. That should only be used for investments. You have an opportunity to go buy another piece of real estate. You got an opportunity to get involved in something that may be a good individual investment. Do that. Another business maybe, as long as it's obviously you vetted that properly. Use that equity, use that money that you've earned basically, and go use it for other investments, okay? Any income off of those investments, okay? Rental houses, any income off those investments ought to go back towards those investments, okay? Or set up new investments, okay? And I'll just tell you that been really fortunate. Dean, Rodney, and I have, we called it Firewater Investments. How about that? So Firewater, you know what Firewater is, right, Scholar? Yeah, okay, good. Had that before? Yeah, yeah. That was before they had, what did Rodney like on the golf course?
Fireball.
That was before Fireball. If we would have called it, I would think today if we were doing it again, it might be Fireball Investments. Right. You know, but anyway. That started 24, 25 years ago. What was that? You remember, Dean, or whatever? But anyway, it was like slow and methodical. We haven't taken a lot of money out. We've replaced some roofs, heat pumps over time, but 18 rental houses. All of them be paid off by the end of this year. Okay? Yeah, which is awesome, which is good.
Yeah.
But did it get rich quick?
Yep.
Yeah.
Took 25 years, right? Okay? Took the extra rent that came in and paid down the mortgage. Extra rent that came in, paid down the mortgage. Okay, that was our investment plan from the beginning. For the most part, we stuck by it. We had a couple times we had to do a few things differently, but my point is as soon as you do that, the more you get revolving in that, the easier it gets, and then you look back on it and say, gosh, look at the results of that. Look at, plus whatever, what do you think having those property values over time paid?
Oh, they appreciate it.
Gone up?
Yeah, yeah, they went way up.
What was the first, you remember the whole thing sort of morphed into something, we started a little bit different, but I know
Correct.
the ones that we first bought were brand new houses, and I thought that we were getting ripped.
Yeah, they were in Spike Street.
87.5.
Yeah.
87.5 in Spike Street. What's that worth today?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, you tell me, I have no idea. I mean, whatever, but that's right. We built some houses over on New York Avenue. I think we spent, it was, how many lots was that, like 10? I'm sorry, reminiscing on stuff, but it was like 10 lots. Rodney brings it, goes, hey man, you wanna build some houses? on some lots and rent them? I said, sure. So anyway, we subdivided the lots, and I think we had like 6,000 each in each lot, and then we built the houses on them, whatever. But the point is, yes, yeah.
I guess the point of telling those stories is that it's always scary whether you're buying houses or whether you're thinking you're going to be putting money into a savings account or buying life insurance. It always seems expensive at the time, and it's always scary at the time. And yet, I can't think of anybody who made a sound investment in something like that. And then as the years went by, they wouldn't tell you that they're so darn glad that they did that.
Yeah.
So you have to have that mindset that it may feel really scary, but if you don't get in, you're not going to get the benefit of the appreciation down the line.
Without a doubt. And it's one of, I mean, this is something actually Mike has said before, but it says he who hesitates is lost. Okay? Try not to hesitate. Now, Mike has no problem not hesitating. He has no issue not hesitating. So, anyway, all right, next slide. Okay, long-term investments. Okay, and just like I mentioned before, I certainly, and I don't expect anybody in the room to be experts at everything, right? You hire people and get people in the right place to help you go along the way. Okay, the advice I got from the guy when I was 34 years old. He had sold his companies. He was a multi-millionaire. He had seen a bunch of stuff, okay? That's somebody that I kind of want to take advice from, right? But also, you can't be expected to know everything. So when you're trying to set up individual investments and things like that, make sure you're heeding to the advice of the professionals in that area. So, y'all, I don't know if any of you guys know, but Tyler is here this morning. I guess this afternoon, I should say. Tyler White's here this afternoon. He is a personal financial planner, has helped some of our hometown employees through some of their investment strategies and things like that. He's got a very brief part about some investments that you can do, and just go up there and I'll introduce Tyler for you guys. Thanks, Tyler, for being here.
Thanks, Tyler. I don't even know if I need to be up here, to be completely honest, after that. I mean, if Todd ever fails, which we know he won't, finance plan. I mean, he's influential, he says the right things, all the right messages. I mean, I'm sitting here taking notes on what Todd's saying, and I do this for a living. That's not to take away from what I do, but you know, this is great language, this is great words. I mean, not like, for example, if somebody was standing in my office almost 10 years ago and said, hey, 50% here, 30% here, 10% here, 10% here, my first 2 years probably been a lot easier from April instead of October, right? Everybody knows what October is? An extension. Yeah. So they give you a little grace there if things do pop up. But the target should always be April, as Todd said. But if I had somebody doing that for me, things would have been a lot easier. I wouldn't have financed somebody different. Like the first purchase I ever made out of college was a motorcycle. Todd would have hated it. I should have
Did you pay cash for it?
I did not. I paid $1,000 down. I was pumped. I left the dealership in Roanoke, and took me 5 years to pay it off. Hindsight's always 20/20. So if you've done those things, it's okay. And if you ever have a question about financing different things, you can certainly talk to Todd or you can talk to myself. I'm an extension of Hometown's resources. So, hey, should I buy this? Should I invest that? Should I do this? Does it make sense to put X down? Or does it make sense to, instead of putting X down, invest the difference? So that's more of the 201, 301, 401 right before graduation. This is basics right here. So I tried to make this as relatable as possible. I can also hide behind this thing. So, building a house with RCI. We use RCI for an example. I did myself. What's the first thing you do when you start to build a house? You find the land. Perfect. Most people go foundation, which I also agree with is very, very important. But the plot, you gotta have an understanding of where you want to be, what you want it to look like, right? This is all visionary. Same thing with long-term savings, that 10% that Todd talks about. So that's going to be more of your cash flow. Your ability to generate income and save month to month, this is extremely important and largely overlooked. Budgeting, I only saw a few people raise their hand. I have a simple tool. Like, make it basic. Ben's a reader, I'm not. Like, I'll pick up a book that's 100 pages. But when Ben refers me to a book that's 300, I'm going to let it sit on the nightstand and collect a little bit of dust. Okay, so make the spending plan very similar. Make it extremely boring. Make it specific to you, right? Highlight it. So especially for the commissionable months, because we're all in the same line, right? I'm a W-2 statutory, 1099 elsewhere. It's not any different. What you made that month, fixed expenses. Look back to the credit card, include it, right? It's boring, it's basic, but it allows you to get the net cash flow. Were you positive, were you negative, okay? And then you can start to talk about the accounts that Todd did to say, hey, I have the extension of my savings, more of a non-qualified savings account that's an investment where I can put additional funds. Out of sight, out of mind, don't touch it, right? So cash flow is extremely important. Budgeting, that cushion, I would argue 6 months, being more of a commission-based type deal. It's more conservative, gives you that extra feel good. The statement's also more attractive. And your emergency fund, that's the cushion. This is what you don't look at when you write, unless you're Todd or anyone else with RCI. You typically don't look at the foundation of the house when you brought their neighborhoods. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but everybody looks at the windows, the fixtures. That's all more of the glorified picture that is investments. This is going to be your work benefits, which you all have to create as 1099. W-2 have these. 401k, group supplemented term, disability, short-term, long-term. You can do all these stuff outside of that and developing a financial plan so you keep on track. Your defensive investments. I think this is what Todd was hitting at with life insurance. And your asset income protection. Your most important asset is not what you have in the bank. It's your ability to generate income. That's the disability that you as 1099, myself as 1099, do not have unless we create ourselves. This is the pretty stuff. I love my RCI house. My wife, obsessed with it. I actually had to convince her to move. Believe it or not. Skylar was happy. I think Abby was happy too. Because I knew nothing about the mortgage. Abby told me what to do. I'm a firm believer, do what you know, anything else, hire. Abby was it. I was like, Abby, if you think that's the right idea, let's do it. She goes, don't you want to know why? I was like, not really. If you think that HELOC's a good idea, great, let's do it. If Ben's over there going, 20%, 20%, 20%. I was like, I'm gonna do 20% in the HELOC. Like, it's not a big deal. Abby told me to do this. Like, it's all good. He goes, oh yeah, well that's good too. So he agrees. It's all of what you hear, right? And we can be sponges as much as we want. Just don't get fixed because things constantly change. But these walls, that pretty white house, the black windows, that's gonna be your investment portfolio. That's gonna be your future, right? The long-term stuff, the non-qualified investments. The qualified, those are just fancy terms for non-retirement or retirement, okay? In retirement, if I'm okay on Todd, I'm Todd. Yep. IRAs, SEP-RA is extremely important for y'all, too, for today's tax benefit. But I'm also gonna talk a little bit on like what we can expect those dollars to be from a taxable standpoint in the future and how you can offset that, some of that risk. Retirement, for those who have kids, education, other mid or long-term goals. Risks, right? Everything in life has risks. Hearing a lot about it right now, inflation. Sucks. Market fluctuation, obviously last year, not fun for me. Okay. Equity markets down, fixed income down, everything not so good. But off to a great start this year. Taxes, healthcare. See, all this, like, I didn't even see Todd's presentation before sending them this, but this is how good at what Todd just did and how much I wish we had him at my office when we got started. I'm not saying it because I respect the guy or like him, this is wow. It should be every office's 101. This long-term play is more long-term care insurance. Everybody knows or has seen somebody go through it, me personally too. Alternative investments are gonna be more of the, you know, real estate, for example. In the meantime, you can essentially have a tarp over that until you build your career in the right track to say, you know what, I have that cushion. I have those accounts that Todd's set up. The permanent life insurance, the term insurance, the non-qualified, the qualified. Hey, let's look at real estate market because it's actually outpaced the S&P 500 over the last 10 years. Most people would say financial planners do not believe in it. I'm not those financial planners. I think the real estate market is a way to diversify your risk outside of the market. Okay? Diversification is a largely overused word in investments, but you also got to diversify outside and with taxes. So that brings me to this. This is more of like what you know, what you don't know kind of piece. And I can send y'all more stuff on this. This is just, hey, taxable. This is more of your, what you know, savings, checking, money market CDs, non-qualified investments, non-retirement investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, UITs, you name it. You get paid, since y'all are 1099, forget this, okay? That's where that 30% goes. Pretend you got paid and taxes were withheld. Uncle Sam always pulls them first, because if he waited till we spent it all or financed all those toys, there'd be nothing left. We'd all be on vacation, wouldn't be here. Right, this money, if it grows, if you invest it, say you invest $100 in AMC last year, what would it have been? 1,000, 10,000, who knows, right? You pull it out, whatever dollars that grew by, minus the 100, is taxable at capital gains. You don't have any idea at the end of the year. Uncle Sam's gonna send you something and say, hey, here's what you owe us. Also sucks. Right, that's why capital gains can completely erode the value of an account over time. Tax deferred is gonna be your IRAs, your SEP IRAs. That's gonna give you the tax benefit today. Phenomenal tools in the way that they grow. Tax deferred is what we should always chase, right? This is the compounding power of our dollars. This is the house on what? 70 Point, is that what you said? New York? Regardless, that thing's blowing up. If I could go back in time, what am I buying? Maybe Tesla, right? But land, because it's something they can't make more of, right? These dollars grow tax deferred, but unfortunately, if the government's going to give us a tax benefit today, let us grow our money the best way possible, what are they going to do in the future? Right. At whatever income or ordinary income is in the future. Really worries us because more money's been printed in the last 3 years, the last 150. This gets us to the tax advantage. What Todd was highlighting, this is going to be more of the Roth component to your plan. After tax dollars in, grows the best way possible, just like down here. When you pull it out, all of it's yours, okay? So this is always yours, super liquid. This gets you the benefit today. Also inside this tool is more of what we call permanent life insurance, cash valued life insurance. World's worst short-term savings tool, but it's also what? World's best long-term savings. It's hard to have both. Here you have both. This is that pill that Dean was saying swallow. Eat it if you can. Ben will highlight on this, huge proponent. A lot of people that I work with, it's more of a conceptual understanding. People hate what it's called. I do too, I'm in it. But love what it does, right? And that's where those pieces kind of fall into place. This is your savings, this is your liquid, this is your fund, this is also your taxes, this is your tax benefit today. If we have any extra left over, let's go here, right? So once we have our cushion, once we have the 6 months, or three's fine, we can put money in here, a lot of money. We can also do some up there. It's diversifying your tax risk. It's diversifying your portfolio. Right here, you should say real estate, because they all fit. So that's really it. It's like intro to 101. I'm here for you guys. If you have any questions, hopefully that helps.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Quick back to the previous, one more. A lot more, I guess. But anyway,
Kind of like what I was talking about. There's all sorts of ways to take that extra 10%, right? What Tyler's talking about is taking some that's your savings and that sort of thing, which obviously as you earn the interest, you pay the income tax on the interest, okay? There's other that's tax deferred, so you invest in it, okay? You invest in it, it's tax deductible. Once you take it out, they're gonna smack you with the taxes, and then it's more long-term stuff. Real estate's more long-term, okay? Again, get rich quick type stuff just doesn't work, okay? You might find a deal every once in a while, you might find something you can flip, that sort of stuff. It still takes work. Hardly anybody buys a house and says, okay, I'm gonna flip it, and the next day they put it on the market for more than what they just did, and they make a bunch of money. They could make a few $1,000 bucks, but it's not worth it, okay? You might as well go get 3 more listings, get a whole lot more worth it, doing that. So real estate's long-term. Other business and investment opportunities, okay? Always keep your eyes and ears open, okay? There's tons of creative ways out there to get involved in other businesses. I'm not saying spend a lot of time in that. Your focus needs to be on finding buyers and sellers and getting to the table. However, as you talk to people and they have business opportunities or they're in certain businesses, if something intrigues you, think about it, do something. And if you have some money in savings, that you already have taken care of some of the other things that Tyler talked about, certainly keep that in mind to do things like that in the future. Go to the last slide. Okay, this is more just like a introduction, if you will, of what I'm going to call the 200, the next level type class in here. So once you kind of get all those percentages and work that, you use some sort of simple formula to do those things. Then what the main thing is leveraging your increase your net worth. Okay, net worth is one thing I'm very, very high, is making sure you understand what net worth. Net worth is really easy to calculate. You take any assets you have, okay, anything that you have assets. That could be a cash savings account, could be a car, that's an asset sometimes, okay? Your home obviously is an asset, rental properties, any life insurance, cash value of that. Your assets minus your liabilities, anything you owe on those things, the bottom line, the difference between the two is called your net worth. The more you increase your net worth, the more opportunities you have. Okay, the more you increase your net worth, the more opportunities you have. Building assets overnight doesn't happen. Building assets over time happens. And it's all has to do with just discipline on how you spend your money and what you do to get your money. Later on, we talk about building a team, setting up an LLC for your business, hiring employees, all that sort of stuff is next level type of things that you would want to look at to try to increase your revenue, okay? Increasing your revenue is always a good thing, okay? Increasing your revenue is always a good thing. Managing your money after increasing your revenue is probably the hardest thing you'll do, okay? Because I've seen it, and again, I'm guilty of it, so I'm not saying that I've just seen it, I'm guilty of it. You make a lot of money. You go out there and make a lot of money one year, and all of a sudden you think that money's gonna come in every single year, right? I'm gonna make at least that next year, right, Dean? We're gonna, made this, go there and make at least that next year, okay? Sometimes that doesn't happen, okay? So if you have the basic business expenses, your basic personal expenses under control, that extra money you make, invest in your future. Invest in things that you can, so that maybe one day when you're 58, you can talk about the rental houses you just paid off that year. Maybe one day when you're 48, I hope, or 30, whatever the number is, that you worked hard, you got to that point, you were smart with your money, and you didn't finance any cars or boats. So anyway, any questions? I'm sorry, hopefully I've got 10 minutes for questions and anything like that. Any thoughts, anything else?
One of the best pieces of advice that you've given me was just, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, but just as far as like, especially if you have a low interest rate on your primary residence and you want to purchase rentals or you have rentals, the extra cash, a lot of people want to pay on principal on their primary residence, but the interest is tax deductible. So you can just talk through that thought process a little bit and the difference between primary investment and the tax deduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question comes sometimes when you are in the position to where maybe you have some extra money and you say, hey, I want to pay down some of the principal on my current residence. My opinion is you don't do that. Okay, and then if you remember what I said before, finance as much as you can on your residence. I'm not saying, sorry, Abby and Nate, I'm not saying you refinance every year either. So make sure you understand that's not what I'm saying. Whatever mortgage you have, as long as it's a reasonable mortgage, keep that mortgage in place. But once you have that mortgage in place and you're comfortable with that payment, just keep making that payment, okay? Any extra money you have, instead of putting it down on your house, use it to go buy another rental house. And again, that'll be something that we talk about in a 200 class, to where you go use it, because there's nothing better than going and buying a rental house. You have 20-25% down, it cash flows day one, and again, just as all part of using your equity. Some of it could be life insurance, because some of the life insurance he talks about actually builds up cash value over time. Guess what? When you borrow against a life insurance policy, or you borrow against your house, or better yet, you borrow against your rental houses, that's not taxable. None of that's taxable. So if you have an equity line that you say you have a house that's worth $400,000 and you only owe $250,000 and you have an equity line of $100,000, you pull out $50,000 out of that to go buy another house, that $50,000 you pulled out is not taxable. None of that's taxable, okay? So just keep that in mind. Does that kind of answer the question?
Perfect. Yeah.
Because the more you separate and the more equity you have in that, take that equity to do other investments, okay? Don't take that equity to go buy for the boat, right? We don't want the boat, right? We love boats, but we're not gonna go buy the boat. Yeah, pay cash, pay cash. Yeah, pay.
Do you have any thoughts on, I mean, I know we're hearing a lot of inflation, FDIC, insurance, and all these things going on, bank failures. Do you kind of play with the percentages you mentioned earlier on, like how much cash you should have as part of your overall portfolio? Do you have a certain percentage of cash of your overall net worth? Like, say your net worth is $2 million, should you have 20% in cash? Or do you just say, I need 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses saved up, and if I've got these other buckets covered with my 10% and whatever, then I use whatever extra to go buy real estate and things like that?
Yeah.
What do you?
So in the beginning, I mentioned that there's these life things that happen, right? And things, and I always say this, and I know it's such a simple thing, there's things you have control of, things you don't, okay? Let's concentrate on these, things we have control of. Things we don't have control, do you have control over inflation? Okay, I think the only one that may have control over inflation is Mike Chenault because he buys a lot. So, I mean, he might actually help inflation come down a little bit. So, we have a friend that we have the, what do you call it, gross domestic product, and then we have the micro domestic product. So two different, but anyway, the point is that we don't have any control over that. We have no control. You have control over what you spend. So if inflation's going up and food products are going up, there's other food products you can go get, right? There's other things you can go get. Instead of, and I don't, nothing against Kroger, instead of going to Kroger, let's go to Walmart this month. There's choices you have that can keep those expenses relatively down. Are you going to be able to do anything with gas? No, but you use credit card points and you use other things that we've talked about that offset some of those expenses to try to keep doing that in line. Those are things that you have control over. The inflation, things like that. You mentioned FDIC. So anybody know what FDIC is? Federal Deposit Insurance Company, basically. And basically what that is the bank will insure up to, I think it's 125,000 now. I think they just bumped it.
250.
250, all right, they just bumped it to 250. It used to be 100 for years, okay? So if you had a deposit account, believe it or not, at a bank and it had more than 100,000, you're only protected to the first 100. If that bank went under, you'd only get 100. That's what the FDIC would do. Now it's 250. So I don't think you should ever carry 250,000 in a checking account. Okay, I'm just we can tell you that. What's that? Yeah, I mean, so my point is, I think you're going to be insured for anything that you're going to want in your checking account. With inflation and kind of what Tyler had said too, you know, I say 3 months of savings. Maybe you go to 4 or 5 or 6 months of savings, you know, or something like that, just to have yourself a little bit better cushion. All of that's relative to that first number we talked about. If we don't earn any income, we don't have to worry about any of this, right? All right. We've got to make sure our priorities are the income. This is running a business, by the way. Okay. Part of running a business is figuring out where you can get your income. It's probably a big part of the business, right? The second part is what you're going to do with the income. What am I going to use that income to do? And that's why we try to make sure that you limit the borrowing on things that you shouldn't be borrowing against. But anyway, the really cool thing. So rental houses, again, we'll talk about this maybe in a couple months. Maybe get back on the schedule. Rental houses are a powerful tool. Okay, don't get me wrong. Life insurance and some of those are really good tools also. Okay. The rental house market, what has that done recently? Boom, right? Okay, now the whole value of everything's gone up. Well, that's settled down. I think you're already seeing some of that settle down now. Rental houses over time, or real estate over time, does it go up or down? Has that been like proven time after time after time? You start way back, does it go down sometimes? Sure. But what was it? It's always, I say it's like this, but it's always going up, right? It might have some ups and downs, but it's going up. The coolest thing about a rental house is that you buy it. You get a mortgage on it, okay? You get a tenant to come in, you gotta qualify the tenant. There's all sorts of stuff that you can, the do's and don'ts of this. Get a good tenant or tenants over time in there. There's nothing better. They pay your mortgage payment and the value keeps going up. They pay your mortgage payment, your value keeps going up, okay? Then one day, when you own 18 of them, you got choices, you got options, okay? It gives you options that you wouldn't have had otherwise, okay? One of those options is sit back and collect the rent. You take monthly distributions or quarterly distributions. Another one is if you own Let's say at the end that you have a plan that says, I'm gonna buy one rental house every 3 years, and I'm gonna do that for 15 years. So I have 5 rental houses after 15 years. Let's say after 15 years, you have 5 rental houses, and you started buying them when you were 30. Then at 45, you have 15 of them, and then, 5 of them, and then by 55 or 60, they're probably all paid off. And I can show you how all that works. So 5 rental houses on today's values worth minimum $1.5 million, right? 300,000 each, right? Minimum $1.5 million. Guess what you could do? You could go borrow money against that, okay? Take $1.2 million out, okay? Tax-free. Take $1.2 million out, okay? Then you could go buy a life insurance policy on it. You pass away, guess what? 2 things happen on that rental property. And this is, again, goes back to a little bit of life insurance. Life insurance policy is pretty expensive on that, right? You're 55 years old, pretty expensive. You pass away, pays off the mortgage. A. B, you get what's called a stepped up basis in that. So if at the time you pass away, those rental properties are worth $2 million, then your heirs inherit it as though they bought it for $2 million. So if they sold it that day for $2 million, they pay no taxes on it. It's called a stepped up basis. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, our tax code does that. Do tax codes change? Yes, but real estate seems to be one that everybody wants to protect. A point being, all that does is build your wealth and build generational wealth, which I think is something everybody ought to consider. So anyway, any other questions? Well, again, thank you guys. Hope you guys got something out of it today, and I do appreciate you guys being here. So thank you.
Guys, we also